All right, good evening, everybody. It is, what are we at, November 2nd?
Yes.
November 2nd. 6:01 November 2nd, I'm going to call this meeting back out of recess, and I will begin just by reading the statement of the hearing once again for those that may have not heard it yesterday. Thank you all for attending tonight's budget hearing. It is important to recognize that we are here tonight to focus on our financial priorities with regard to finalizing the 2024 York City budget. We know that government needs to do more with less, and we are. As our budget is basically the blueprint for the city of York, it is imperative that the budget team and I receive as much information as possible in order to ensure a fiscally responsible budget is adopted. With that said, we will hear testimony on projected income and budgeted expenses for all departments as they relate to programs and services for the City of York, appropriations, how they will be used, projected expenditures, and program outcomes. In considering the budget, Council may reduce any item and may increase or add items as deemed appropriate and/or necessary to achieve the city's goals and its financial objectives. I'd like to emphasize that this is a public hearing, not a public meeting. Although we welcome your comments, a public hearing is not a debate session, but is designed specifically for the purpose of receiving testimony and evidence on the issue at hand. Presenters will first be given an opportunity to outline their budget, followed by the budget team and then council questions. We will then receive public testimony. It is asked that each person providing testimony give your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes so that everyone who wishes to speak has an opportunity to do so. FAQs. Are rebuttal comments allowed? At my discretion, rebuttal comments may be allowed. If allowed, rebuttal comments will only address specific matters or questions raised during the hearing and must be brief, preferably 3 minutes or less. Things to keep in mind: speakers should provide testimony pertinent to the subject matter at hand and should avoid repetition of comments made by previous speakers. Refraining from comment if the same points were raised by a prior speaker or simply stating agreement with the points previously provided will help move the hearing along so that others who wish to speak will have the opportunity to do so. Large groups whose members wish to speak are encouraged to designate a spokesperson. What about written testimony? Exhibits, letters, petitions, and other documents presented or shown to the council become part of the official record. Written testimony may be submitted in conjunction with or in place of oral testimony. What is not allowed? No disruptions or disorderly conduct will be tolerated. Speakers and members of the public shall refrain from abusive or profane remarks, disruptive outbursts, applause, protests, engaging in disruptive conversation during presentations, speaking out of turn, preventing or attempting to prevent others who have the floor from speaking, or other conduct which disrupts or interferes with the orderly conduct of the public hearing. Such conduct is strictly prohibited. Personal attacks on elected officials, staff, or members of the public are out of order and will not be tolerated. It is not appropriate for a speaker to debate a matter under consideration with other speakers, the audience, or members of the budget panel. Engaging in such conduct and failing to cease upon request will be grounds for ending a speaker's time. With your cooperation, we will have an informative and successful hearing, and your adherence to these instructions is truly appreciated. Consideration for adoption of the 2024 budget is projected to take place before December 31st, 2023, and will be advertised accordingly. With that, I will turn the proceedings back over to Business Administrator Kim Robertson.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We are going to start today with our Public Works Department, and we've got Director Chaz Green. So, Chaz, if you want to give us an intro.
Yes, my name is Chaz Green, the Director of Public Works. I guess now I've been with the City of York for 7 years as of the end of September. And in that time, I guess about 5.5 years, I've been the Director of Public Works. And some of our good accomplishments that we were able to pull together this year out of the Public Works Department was obviously we had received some funding from PennDOT this year, and we were able to complete North York Street project, which went from little ahead of North Street down to Parkway Boulevard here in the city. So that project was complete. We did a playground build with Williams Park. That was with funding from CDBG, and also we received some money through the Parks Conservancy as well as PA American Water, who was a great partner on this project with us as well. We replaced the Atlantic Avenue Bridge this year. Majority of that was paid out of liquid fuels funds. It was actually just completed, so we just received one of our last invoices here. And we also started master plans for Farker Park, Kiwanis Lake, Noonan Field, and Bands Parks. We had 2 community meetings. We didn't get as many representatives from the city of York that I would have liked, but we still have some time because we actually have a survey, which is on our main page of our website, which is at yorkcity.org. So if you had some time, please go through and let us know what you would like to see in our park system so we can use it and throughout this master plan process.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize that our parks aren't revisioned very often. If you look at Bance Park, other than a little bit of new playground equipment, I don't think that has been touched since the 70s. No. So this is your opportunity to create York City for the next 20, 30, 50 years. What kind of amenities are we wanting for our kids, and our grandkids? What do we want to see? So we are listening, but we need input. So please, it's one of the first things right on the yorkcity.org webpage. And please, it's a quick survey. Please complete it. Thank you.
All right. Kim, that's all I had for that.
Okay, similar to business administration that we finished up with yesterday, Public Works is made up of several bureaus, which of course are set up here as budget departments, starting out with just Public Works Administration. So what we'll probably do, Chaz, is just kind of go through one at a time, see if the mayor has any questions that pop out, if there's anything that you want to point out within the budgets, please do.
Yeah, not line by line necessarily.
No. I try to highlight so before I come here, so I don't have to hold you guys up for every line. One thing I will say on here, and Kim and I spoke a little bit through email today, and we'll get this resolved. But if you're looking at architect and engineer consulting, there we have $150,000, which is dedicated to TRG, who will be working on our Arley grants that we received, and we'll be doing some changes in intersections for safe routes to school. But one of the intersections this year will be at Prospect and College Avenue, right at the V. So we'll be making some changes there for our kids who are walking into the Hennepin School District down the Broadway Greenway over to Good School as well. We also will be in the Roosevelt, Penn Street, and Philadelphia Street area as well, that intersection. We'll be making some changes there as well here in the spring. I'm sure everyone is excited about that area of town. So we will be definitely, we received some funding. Arley grant, which is the automated red light enforcement system, some funding available through that. So we were able to get those funds, and we'll be taking that out this year, and also we'll be doing some work down by York Academy as well. So yes. So and looking at that, so $150,000 of that. Then we have CS Davidson, who is doing some contracting for us, engineer. One is some design and engineering for the Philadelphia Street Bridge as well. And we did not put that cost in here, so it was missing the budget. So there will be another $330,000 that will be coming out of the architect and engineer consulting in that budget. So in the public works, I mean, honestly, that was the biggest highlight in ours. We haven't made any other changes.
Just to inform council, we were hoping to include the Market Street Bridge somehow in the ARPA expenditures. The plans and the changes required by the Cadorus Creek Greenway project make it much more extensive than CS Davidson had originally suggested, so we will not be able to use ARPA funding for that project. We will not be able to meet the Treasury's deadlines. So as we move forward with the final appropriations of ARPA money, that one is now, as of a few hours ago, I was informed that one's off the table. But I did meet with state legislators today and explained to them very thoroughly how much we needed that. So
Okay.
hopefully we'll have an opportunity to go to the state to look for some funding for that.
Just kind of piggyback off of Mayor is with this project, when we are going to do the engineering and design of this project so that when funding does become available wherever, we're ready. And we'll be shovel ready and to be able to go after these funds and get this project done. So even though we're not able to get the bridge complete, we're still going to do the engineering design so we can make it happen in the future.
Okay. That's definitely a big highlight. The bulk of this budget is utility cost. Is utility costs, the public works budget, except for a couple exceptions that specifically like the police building or fire, the majority of the utilities across the city fall into this budget. So that's where you'll see lots of cost centers based on the utility groups. Mayor, do you have any other questions for their budget? There's also the budget for the MS4 stormwater program.
Yeah, no, my questions begin with the water expenditures on page 3. I'm sorry, these are the pages that you originally gave me, so my page numbers will
Oh,
not
I'm sorry,
be associated.
46. Sorry, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, this is gonna be difficult because you gave me different page numbers.
I can print you a copy. There's a copy.
Yeah, but my notes are in here.
Okay. I will help you.
Okay, so under utilities, we start to see this large sewer increase. Why is that?
I'm sorry, Mayor.
Would that be because we now have to start paying sewer? And we went through 1 year of that and we realized the cost.
Okay, so that was the
Yes.
half year, and now you're dealing with full years. Okay, great, thank you. All right, how much do we need to ton? Now I'm on to George Street paving. Are we still
Is that under the,
thrown off by this numbering thing? So where are we?
is that under the capital?
Yes.
Okay, 49,
Projects.
page 49.
Yeah, I see a almost $900,000 reduction in the revenue. The reimbursable traffic improvement project. So does that mean we still expect $1.2 million worth of bills to be coming in from that project?
What page are you on, Mayor? I'm sorry.
I couldn't-
49, page 49.
All right, I got my own budget that I brought with me, which is just public works, so that's why I'm.
Yeah, that's what happened with me too.
Yeah, okay. And you said it was under,
If you've got one that starts with page 1, I'm on page 4.
okay. All right.
You have the same one I do?
I do, yeah.
All right, good, we can communicate.
So expenses, so we're talking revenue, you said, right?
Yeah, the revenue drops from 2 million down to 1.2. And my question is, how much still needs to be done on George Street paving? I thought we were done the project. So does that mean 1.2 million that is outstanding for the 2024 budget is just we're expecting bills to come in? And again, this is pass-through money from PennDOT.
Yeah, it's just
so
pass-through.
it's not.
This is, we ran into an issue last year when we did South George Street, is that when we got, at the end of the year, the project was supposed to be completed, so I didn't add money into the budget for the following year. And then we ended up having to bring it back through council to get money put back into the budget. What I didn't want to do is run into that this year, where we still had some stuff that could be possibly going on, because there's always something that, obviously, we could have some manhole issues, we could have some issues with the.
Right,
with
but
the-
1.2 million?
Yeah, I thought we kept it a little under that originally. I didn't think we had it at 1.2, but,
That's his number.
yeah,
So
okay.
we can change it
Yeah,
whatever you
we'll
like.
change that then. I thought it was I thought it was like 200,000, so. Yeah, I thought it kept it at 200,000, which would be for like concrete work and stuff like that, which still needs to be completed in front of the Strand, or the Pell Center.
Right.
Yes.
And then on the bottom of that page, 10233, PennDOT automated red light.
Yes, that's the Arley grant money.
That is the RO, and you just mentioned one. So this is going to cover Philadelphia and
Yes.
and
it's all-
Penn.
Yes.
So
If you look at like our revenue for the Arley grant, we had it, so what we did was we received funding for this grant. It was like for engineering and stuff like that, but we really need the money for the project, so we
Right.
pulled out engineering because we were already paying for it. So that's what that's
Okay.
for those 3 areas.
So for the first time since the history of what used to be West York Avenue, before they had cars, that crazy intersection at Philadelphia, Penn, and Roosevelt is finally going to be addressed. So Byron at the Roosevelt Tavern, we actually have it in the budget. And because unfortunately his facility, his restaurant there takes the most damage from all the issues with driving there. So we're finally going to get that addressed.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm done with that department. I'm on highway.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Budget team, do you have any questions? No. Council members, do you have any questions? No. All right, public, any questions? Sir?
Ryan Supler, I got a question for the salaries and wages. I was wondering how many people is that, and for the 60,000 increase, is that an extra person?
Yes, we moved stormwater in under this budget as well. The MS4 position.
Yeah, there's 2 different cost centers within this budget. There's a total of 3 full-time individuals and 75% of another full-time, so.
Okay. And then is this split up for the different departments? Like when we get into highway, there's like a whole other.
They have their own, yep, this is specifically for Public Works Administration.
Okay.
Yep.
Because then my other question was going to be, is that a sufficient amount of employees to do the work necessary in the community for Public Works?
Yeah, in administration it is.
Okay.
Yes.
But then for like the other roles,
Yes, it is.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, if there is no other questions, we can move on to Highway.
All right, and majority of this in highway was pretty standard, and Keith did a good job with moving some line items, kind of combining them together this year for funding and making sure that we don't have to do as many budget transfers as we've done in the past. But if you look, I highlighted on page 7, which is, I guess, the second page on the highway budget.
Page 52.
If that's what you say, yes. Mine says 7.
I'm just going to narrate in the background, it's okay.
All right. Yeah, so on that second page there, if you look at other contractual services, we haven't changed it, but one thing that we've been having to do over these years is that we have our bridges are aging around the city, so some of them we had to replace. So what we have CS Davidson working on for us is a plan to do repairs every year. And every other year, we've now completed 2, Pennsylvania Avenue and Atlantic Avenue Bridge. So now this year's money in the side, which is $300,000 to repair some bridges here in the city of York, $500,000 to do street repairs around the city, and $51,700 just for emergency repairs, just because obviously we have the city of York that we oversee from the highway department. So we like to have just a little something in there that we can use in case we have an emergency somewhere.
And this specifically is for other contractual services, so this is when you have to utilize an outside
Yes.
contractor for the work.
Yes, this isn't us doing that work. But in highway, that was the only highlight that I had that really was a significant, well, it was a change, but just a higher number in the budget that I thought we should discuss.
And what accounts for the 36,000 in increase in wages on your page 6?
Increase in wages, I guess I have to.
I'll have to look at that. I'm not quite sure. I can't account necessarily for, there wasn't a full. At. For the Highway Bureau, so I'll have to check my workforce plan for that.
Okay. And I see the interfund transfer is down $44,000, 43150.
That should be a reduction in the, what goes to the capital fund.
And that is a transfer from 10 into the capital fund?
Correct.
Okay. So $44,000 less of essentially taxpayer money is being transferred into the capital fund.
Correct. If we get to Fund 50, which is good 4 or 5 pages down, it's just the 87. We'll have to see, because that also might include, it's any transfer from the general fund outward. And I'm not sure where the 40 went from, because it's not showing as being budgeted last year.
Isn't there a reduction in the leases for the equipment that we have that has been paid off?
I don't think so.
From next year, this year to next year?
In highway, no, the equipment we got, we just purchased that not too long ago.
Yeah, that's actually my next question.
We may have, it may have been the street sweeper that came off.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I think it was the last.
There's an old piece of equipment that I think is. There's an old piece of equipment I think that's coming off.
Okay. If anything, I think it may be the street sweeper
We
because that
had
was.
the money in for last year's budget to
Yeah.
get the new street sweeper.
Yes.
Down payment for it, and we don't need it for this year.
Yeah, it wasn't ready for this year.
Well, and that brings me to my next question. Vehicle expenses under 10003, major equipment. Are those leases that are in there? Why is that? Or are we just allocating the same amount of money as we did last year?
That's under liquid fuels for major equipment.
Yeah. Oh, so is that just a standard?
Yes.
That is a standard amount? that
Highway
you're-
department equipment, that's what they can claim towards liquid fuels to pay towards their equipment each year.
I understand that, but are there, I guess, there is this thing where there's a certain amount of money that you're allowed versus how much you actually have to buy. So is that amount of money must be used for equipment of this type, large vehicle equipment? Or is it this is just a standard number that we've used because it's a percentage of the liquid fuels?
It's more of a standard number, but if you, for example, if he needs to use it someplace else, he can easily do that. Liquid fuels will allow us to make a transfer, but we just have to get their permission to do it.
Okay. So they tell us the number.
It's a standard number that is used, and then you would vary it. If you make a change to it, you have to just get their permission to make a change. For example, if you wanted to buy an additional piece of equipment and you wanted to use their funds for it, all we would have to do is get their permission to do that using the liquid fuels money.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking, and you may have answered, but I'm going to ask it a different way. Is this a standard, like 2% of all liquid fuel funds must be documented this way? Or are we choosing to do that this way?
Yes, I think we're
That was an
choosing.
or.
Choosing.
Just like in the past when we wanted, like in the electrical bureau, when we pulled some of that money from liquid fuels and put it into the electrical bureau
So-
from this one and put it into to electrical department to pay for our street lights.
So what I'm trying to avoid is that we get into this rhythm of always saying, hey, we're going to spend $211,000 on equipment, even if we don't need that equipment. Because that's what happens when you get budgeted money. People say, oh, there's that money in the budget for that.
Yeah.
Well, it could be that 100,000 of this could be used to pave a road. But we didn't put it under road paving. We didn't plan ahead of time to put it under road paving because traditionally we just threw 211,000 into this category. So I just want to make sure that within your plan for 2024, you have the expectation of spending this money on equipment because we need it. Or is there the opportunity to put this money into paving additional roads next year?
It can be. It can be an opportunity, and I'll have to talk it over with my team and see.
Okay,
Yeah, equipment-wise, but it can be a possibility.
all right.
And also over the years, Mayor, we have transferred some of this money out of, say, equipment line item to put under for streetlights, because the streetlights cost a lot more than what's being paid for by liquid fuels.
Yeah.
We have increased that over the last couple of years dramatically.
A budget is supposed to be a plan of what you're going to do next year.
Yes.
So I want to make sure that we're not planning to do unnecessary things, you know that once we put it in a budget line item, people look at it as that is the money to spend for that.
Yeah, and I think one thing
Sometimes whether they need it or not.
And I think one thing what we try to do is that one, because when we have these savings with liquid fuels, money that we don't use, we're able to carry it over, and that's how we've been able to get our bridges replaced over the last 3 years. So this has been done, even though it's in the budget like that now. We do cautiously watch how we spend this funding because we know we need to replace bridges around the city.
And unfortunately, the reserve that we had in liquid fuels is getting to a point where it's going to be getting to an end.
Yes.
We have used it for the last couple of years.
Yes. So now we have to work on trying to bring that back up.
The next question I have for you is on your page 9.
Okay.
47120 construction expenses. We have zeroed out the resurfacing, the liquid funds paying for resurfacing at $858,000 being removed from resurfacing. What is the reason?
That was actually to pay for the Atlantic Avenue Bridge. So that was some of that money that we talked about that we had left over. So that went to that account. And now the bridge is complete. So we don't have a bridge we're doing next year. So that is back to zeroed out.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it is.
It's page 54.
That is everything I have for the highway department.
Budget team, do you have any questions?
No.
Council members, any questions?
You're amazing.
Public, any questions? All right. Next on doc is Building and Electrical Bureau.
All right. Here in our electrical bureau, one thing I would like to highlight, if you look down our electrical supplies, last year it went from 100,000. This year we're looking at 170,000. And this is something, Mayor, we had I talked to you about today, but we did get this in here originally. And obviously what goes from here, can stay in or doesn't stay in. But we received some funding a couple years ago from the Visitors Bureau in the amount of $225,000. And we also received $150,000 from the Huffman Foundation. And over the first 2 years, our requirement for the grant was to actually replace fencing on a couple of our softball fields. So the $250,000 out of those 2 years, we were able to do that. The third year was supposed to replace softball lighting out of on our fields. And we ran into a situation that we hit COVID, but then also coming out of COVID, it just wasn't funding available for softball lights. We went through DCNR, we went through Parks Conservancy, other sources as well, to try and find money to kind of get that match so we can get this work completed. We're now in a situation where we could possibly lose the funding and have to return the funding that we received if we don't get this project complete. And so what we do is we had 2 projects this year, one out of Parks that we planned on making a purchase, but we ended up finding outside funding, so we didn't have to use the budget. And that's another example what we try to do in the Public Works Department is that though we have the money in the budget, if we can find other ways so we don't have to use our budget, that's what we try to do. And because of that, there in the Electrical Bureau, because we didn't do a contract for the PA1 markings this year, which we had in the budget for last year, we didn't. That we do have funding to actually, with the money that we currently have, plus some money that we have left over, it's going to be left over in the Highway Department, in the Parks Department plus the Electrical Bureau. It will now allow us to buy all the supplies that we need. We would no longer have to return the money back to the Visitors Bureau. We can buy it, and then next year in the budget, which is at $150,000. The quote we received is for $130,000, and that is to put all the equipment on the poles and install the pole in the park. Sorry. And my phone's on silent, so I apologize. Yes, so that's where we are with it. So we did put it in the budget initially, hoping that, will be something to happen, and we'll see what happens when the budget team and council and everyone reviews it.
And what is the amount that we may lose if we do not do this?
$125,000.
So we'll get $275,000 worth of services if we invest this 150, is what you're
Yes.
telling me.
And if we get this, we'll be able to put ourselves in a situation to go back after some of this funding, which comes from the hotel tax, from the Visitors Bureau. And if we don't, then obviously
There's also been an increased use in the fields, correct?
there has.
And
We had an international tournament this year as well. We had a lot of other bigger tournaments as well, like local tournaments, and we had some tournaments from outside of state. So we are, and it's a county grant opportunity, but the softball tournaments that we are having, we're putting heads in beds here in the county of York, and hopefully now with the Yorktown Open in the city of York.
Some people may remember, probably nobody here, unless you're a historian, but the York used to be a softball capital of the country. It was a huge deal here. And those fields were utilized by major teams, and people came from all over the country. So this is working back toward, and it was a good source of revenue. So we are working back towards that. So I'm going to support this expenditure.
Thank you, Mayor.
But I have a different question on that page.
Okay.
And that's just the salary increase. There's another $56,000. Did we add a position there?
This is an addition for let me double check my notes. This is, what's put in is for a supervisor position that would be able to assist the superintendent, Dave Rudolph, in terms of directly supervising the staff between the building maintenance staff and the electric bureau staff, so that Dave can focus on the big picture projects, working with the contractors, all of that, so that there's that additional person. Because at the moment, they have a great administrative person in there, but it's a union position, and she's limited in terms of what direction she can give to the staff. So if Dave isn't in the office, then he's communicating, of course, just by phone, or he's got to stop where he's at to come on over to them. So this request is additional assistance for a supervisor to assist.
So why would we not eliminate the position that does not have the power to supervise and put somebody in a role that does? Why are we adding a full position? I mean, there are 4, the staff of the Electric Bureau is 4. So, and then facilities folks, and I know it's broader once you bring in the other public works, depending on what is needed, whether it's painting or something like that, but an entire new supervising position,
I mean, we can't bring the
this hasn't been discussed with me, so.
The supervisor can't come in and do the role of the union employee who was doing the administrative work. So we can't, there's a purpose for administrative work within building and electrical.
But this person would this person still do the administrative work, right?
They would do administrative work, but they wouldn't be doing like the accounts payable, the basic administrative work that the data entry clerk is currently doing.
Mm-hmm.
So it is proposed and can be discussed if it's.
Yeah, this is a full-time employee. I'm currently not in favor of this, so we're going to have more discussion. I'm going to really need to be convinced, because I'm trying not to. While ARPA has letting us get a little loose with hiring, we know that when the ARPA money is gone, the size of the government is going to have to be reduced again. And full-time employees, while they do amazing work, and I love the employees of the city, every full-time employee jacks up these healthcare costs that I talked about last night that have gone up 1,200%. 1,200% in the last 10 years. The healthcare benefits we have a $68 million budget, and $11 million of it is going to the healthcare for our employees. So I'm going to stick with what I ran on 6 years ago, which is no more full-time employees unless you want to reduce a full-time employee somewhere else. So I'm
No problem.
going to need convincing serious convincing on this.
And the one thing I'd like to add is just we do need to take in consideration, I believe all the superintendents within Public Works are going to be eligible for retirement in the next 10 years. So coming up with some kind of succession plan could be beneficial in continuation of operations over time.
I would certainly be in favor of that, doing it from within. And training people, having people get better, or not better, but additional training to have them prepared so that we can promote from within the individuals that have been here. Again, we have a couple weeks before we have to come to council, so we can talk about this internally.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's not just a $56,000 increase, it's also an $18,000 increase. Oh, no, okay, that's below here, that one I didn't bring up. Shift differential. Yeah, so you got to add the FICA in there too, and all the other expenses. It's not just the salary line item. And then the long-term pension and healthcare benefits. I do see one additional part-time employee.
That's actually a shift. The part-time employee is a part-time janitor in the Health Bureau. So ultimately, the salary associated with that position ends up getting repaid by a grant. I think in the past, the difference between having it budgeted in the Health Bureau, having it budgeted in building maintenance, it essentially is covered by a transfer from the Health Bureau funds.
Very good, thank you. Let's see. Okay, then on our, let's see, cost center 44190. Sorry, I thought I had turned it on. Cost center 44190, building repair service. If you go to the very bottom, Chaz and I discussed this today. It is my intention to close up the bathrooms in the square and seal those up so that if money becomes available in the future. So basically, we have these bathrooms that back in the 20s and 30s, there was a lot of wealth in this city, and they were able to pay people to attend those. Again, I just gave you a description of the real cost of employees, and essentially we would have to have city employees down there to monitor. I would suggest that people are not quite as civil as maybe they were in the 1920s or 1930s, and these bathrooms were closed for a long time. Mayor Robertson, I think, is the one that tried to open them back up again for a very short period of time. They were open, and they have been defunct for over 20 years. It's just not feasible to open those bathrooms in a fiscally responsible way. So the goal is to seal them up in a way that preserves them, and if people in the future want to do something with them, they can do that. But the goal is, and we have a plan that we're working on to improve the mobility and usability of Continental Square, and part of that plan is to essentially clear out the southeast corner, remove the balusters and things from the bathrooms, remove the flower and the tree well that is there, or the whatever you call that thing, little round garden thing, and the monument that is there. Open that up so that if there are events or public use of any kind, we would have that opportunity to do that right there in the square. So the point of that is that we did get an estimate for $153,000 to do just the bathroom part. I've had a discussion with Public Works, and we believe that a lot of that can be done internally. So we want to reduce that to $100,000 and hope that we don't even need to spend that much. But if council would be so kind as to put that money in, or to leave that money in, that would give us room to do that. There was a planter there that was removed, 20 years ago or something?
Yes.
And that was all done internally by Public Works. So the engineering of creating the braces and things like that to create a covering over the openings for the bathrooms. That's a little bit more high-tech engineering. We do want to contract for that, but some of the basic removal of the things that were included in the original,
We'll be able to take care of ourselves.
yeah, we'll be able to take care of that ourselves. So let's change that to $100,000. And we promise to use as little of that as possible.
Mayor, if you look in here, actually, looking down here in the liquid fuels area.
Page 58.
Yes. So if you look down here, I'm just going to show you. If you look at like Electric Street, so that's where we moved that money from. You see the 450,000 that we have there under liquid fuels.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what pays for our streetlights.
How many streetlights do we have? Do you know?
It's a lot. I have it on my computer.
We should try and get that number, just because.
We do. We have it.
I know.
We have
This goes way back for me being on council and when we had really, really tight budgets and things, because I recognize that people want more lights. People do want more lights, but I hope people recognize there's a $450,000 expense that is paying for these lights. So we have to be a little bit careful, and we can only put lights where existing poles are unless we want a very large expense. So just something to keep in mind.
And just that, I mean, if you're looking at that, and that's only what we pay out of liquid fuels. Yeah. We also have funds that come out of our budget as well.
Oh, yeah.
They pay for lights as well. So I think we're closer to what, Jerry, between 700,000 and 800,000 currently?
I believe that is correct, yes.
Yeah, for electric lights, so.
That's all I have for that budget.
We have 3,500 lights through Med Ed and 1,600 of our own. So
City-owned lights, right? Yeah.
Yep. Thanks, Dave.
One day we'll turn them all solar.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Turn them all solar and cut that cost yearly.
Yeah.
And we just have to change the heads on them, like we did at Penn Park.
That would also, if the power went out, that they could
It will
continue.
still work. All right, so looks like we're environmental services now.
I just want to
my
point
fault,
out,
sorry.
I just did a little math there, and I think we used to calculate about $250 or $260 a year per light.
Okay.
And I just ran a calculation based on what Dave said. If you're right with 800,000 and Dave's right with a total of 5,100, we're at about 100. Well, probably our 1,600 street lamps are lower usage than the larger lamps, but we're at $157 per year per light.
Okay.
I'm sure Dave will be able to fill me in on the difference between the usage of the street lights and the.
Yeah, I'm sure. I turned my phone off after my alarm went off. So.
Thanks again, Dave.
Mayor, do you have anything else under building and electrical?
Nope, I'm on the fleet.
All right. Budget team, any questions for building and electrical?
No.
No? Council members? No? Public? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Elspeth Bupp. So much information in here, so bear with me. The City Hall courtyard brick repair and replacement on page 56, $25,000. I'm wondering if that's an annual repair or is that a one-time repair? Do we have insurance to cover any of that if it's?
Yeah, it's going to be a one-time repair. It just hasn't been done in years. So we have a lot of loose bricks out there. We're just worried about residents coming into City Hall, getting injured as they're coming in. So we need to repoint all the bricks that are in the courtyard.
So that's all of them, okay? And the plumbing and HVAC repairs on all city buildings, $40,000. And that's under building repair service, 44,190.
Yes.
It's all part of that 338,000, but I was looking below, so you've got building repair service as a category and other contractual services as a category below that. They both speak to HVAC control
Yes.
systems, so it sounds like it's happening in both sections, but maybe it's different buildings?
Yeah, no, it's actually we have all the city-owned buildings are under that, and with the first 40,000 that you're seeing is that's just us. We're like buying supplies and things like that, and we're doing the work. The other one is contractual services in case we need to reach out for a company to come in and take care of some of these issues.
Got it. Okay.
Well, just like a homeowner, every year we never know what we're going to get. So,
True. Every year, you gotta have a plan for fixing your stuff every year.
yes, ma'am.
What is the 150,000 Musco lighting technology and the complex lighting? Is this the complex?
That's what that's what we talked about. The softball with the lighting that I had just
Oh,
mentioned a little
softball.
bit ago. So that will be to install the pole next year.
I'm sorry, where will that go? I don't know where. Oh, in the parks.
Yes, Memorial Park.
Memorial Park.
Yeah, the softball complex.
And Marie Rollator, she's brought it up at city council meetings. She says, when do we get some lights at the back entrance to City Hall? Because it's kind of dark out there. Is that covered in this budget? Would you be installing some brighter lights or going
So
out the back door?
We don't have issue with lights out. You're just saying you want more lights installed.
It's pretty dark. yes.
Okay, yeah,
So-
we don't have that in this budget.
Well, we are missing 2 light posts out there, which I'm not sure what is happening. I asked Dave about it. Hi, Dave.
Yeah.
I asked. I'm sorry. I'm looking at a camera when I'm doing that.
Oh, okay.
Dave Rudolph is at home. He's not here, but he's watching and informing us of things through our phones. He has more knowledge than pretty much anybody when it comes to the facilities of the city of York. But yeah, we do have some lights that need to be replaced that have been knocked down or there have been
Yeah.
problems with them for some.
And those ones we are working on, but installing just new, we don't have any plans to. And maybe something that we can.
If you could think about that, when you do walk out the back door tonight, look to the left in the handicap parking area. And when you have people going to that parking area, it's very dark.
Okay.
There isn't a lot of ambient light from other buildings, so you might trip off a curb, especially if it's a handicapped area. You want to maybe protect that a little better with some lighting.
Thank you.
And then I would just, a personal opinion, the comfort stations, I remember them when I was a kid getting down in there. And I don't know if anybody's talked with York County Economic Alliance, Downtown Inc., or the Yorktown Hotel. It could be a real tourist draw. If you could get those things up and running again, I would
Nobody wants to touch it.
love to see them reactivated because we don't have enough, we have no public bathrooms downtown that I'm aware of, and we probably need some.
Nobody that I've found. Well, everybody has ideas, but nobody I've found wants to fund the 24-hour oversight. As you can imagine, whatever oversight would have to be basically at security level.
Right?
It would be very expensive to do so.
Okay.
Not to mention the major restoration.
All right, thank you.
So we have talked with YCEA, we've talked with Downtown Inc. Everybody's in favor of bathrooms, but it's been very difficult to find out exactly how to do it. During the height of COVID, we put portable toilets out there. Unfortunately, they were so full of needles that they couldn't even pump the thing. So they are being used by individuals suffering from drug addiction, and then they are disposing of their things in there. Not to mention other problems that come with those enclosed spaces when people are facing both financial and mental health challenges. There's a lot of issues. So it's hard to create spaces where people can hide and not spend a lot of money having some kind of safety plan for the individuals that are trying to use it. And nobody yet has proposed to me something that can be sustainable, can be funded sustainably in the long term. So we are looking.
Okay, one more tidbit From Dave Rudolph, he says, we saved money on the streetlights because they switched to LED bulbs.
That's what I was thinking.
Yep, there we go. Thank you, Dave. All right, no other questions or concerns about building and electrical? We move on to fleet. Now, fleet is housed with highway, but this is specifically cost associated with maintaining the city's vehicle fleet.
And I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but the only question I have, we added a mechanic. Is that the $56,000 or the $58,000 increase?
This is a proposed auto mechanic trainee, which we haven't had in a very long time, and actually ended up moving out of the Teamsters collective bargaining agreement at one point. But my understanding is that they have a lot of, especially the police department, with their vehicles on pretty much 24/7 and idling, that they're having a lot of issues that they can't keep up with the kind of reoccurring maintenance that needs to be done with vehicles that are used that hard, which means it ends up clogging up the engines and they're replacing motors as opposed to being able to do oil changes more frequently than a normal vehicle gets done. So putting this position in ultimately will have somebody who is doing those maintenance so that we can keep the police cars up and running longer without having to do major repairs to it. The one thing I do have to follow up with Keith about is if initially he could see a reduction in one of his repair lines in order to help, cover the position.
I think some for like contractual services and stuff like that, it'll help us with sending out vehicles. Because a lot of times we only have two. So we have one who focuses solely on like diesel mechanics, which we used to bring a company who would come in, cost us a lot more than what we're paying for a person currently. And then unfortunately we had another mechanic who was there because we've always tried to have three mechanics at the same time, but it was just so tough for us to find a diesel mechanic, which is why we contracted the position out. But at one point a couple of years ago, we lost a mechanic. He passed away while he was working for the city of York. And then we were just down to our one mechanic. We were lucky enough to find someone who actually lived in the city and was a diesel mechanic to hire for the position. Well, we always wanted to have someone back in that position. And because, we're having these fleet vehicles, we have more vehicles that are coming in, we have more employees, and it's just tough with those two just trying to keep up with it. And if we get that third person, then that's going to save us money. We'll send a lot of these cars out so we can get them back on the street.
Can you tell me, there was an increase, and you're going to have to jump around a little, Kim. Can you tell me what the maintenance budget from the police department is? I did discuss this with the commissioner and staff yesterday, not during the hearings, but before. There was an increase in their budget due to the exact problem that you described, but it was something like $15,000. I thought it was something like $15,000 or something like that. Nothing near here. So again, you're talking about health benefits and pensions for an individual. Not in favor of this right now until you can show me that the savings from all of our departments are enough to make up for these legacy costs.
Yeah, because currently we were the only ones who actually had like line items for vehicles. So I don't even think
No, both fire and police have them too,
this year, but did they have them
for maintenance.
I'm having trouble finding them.
Yeah, I didn't think they did. It was us, because we get it. So we plan for it, but what happens is if police has, more issues with their vehicles or fire does, it still comes out of our budget. And then what ends up happening to us is that at the end of the year, we're making transfers on stuff and pull money out of other line items that we needed for the highway that we no longer have because we had to pay for stuff at the police or whatever the case may be.
Jerry, did you find, or Denise, what's the,
$15,000 that says for vehicle repair.
There you go.
I'm not sure why.
but it went up from what?
It's just one of the line items in there. It's not changed.
Okay, then it must have been the 2022, because I was comparing everything 2022, 23, and 24, so we would get a better understanding.
It went up $8,500 from the previous year.
Okay, yeah, so the police are trying to deal with the issue by having an additional 8,500 in their budget, 8,500, not 57 or 58,000. And
I'll be honest with you.
Specifically about replacing an engine because of what they had to do.
That's just one
understand that,
vehicle.
but replacing an engine is a few $1,000s, not a legacy cost, healthcare costs, and
Yeah,
and
I'll
all
build
that.
I'll build a poor numbers up because what we're spending out of our budget is a lot more than that, and they're bringing multiple vehicles, so it's not just one. So I'll be able to pull those numbers up for you. We do have them.
I mean, and oil changes are what, $50 a piece. So the difference between hiring an individual, if that's what it is, you know, I mean, the police, I believe we replaced the runner, the person that runs the vehicles back and forth. I think that position was replaced. So,
But when they're talking about the vehicles running, it's not that per se. It's about when they're out on the streets, their car idles.
I understand that, but I'm
Yeah.
talking about oil changes. You said that this person would be able to provide more frequent oil changes.
Oil change, other maintenance work, so not just that. It's not just oil change. I'm just saying it would be nice to, like right now we have a person who's doing, he has to do all the, if it's an engine, you have to pull out the engine, replace it in the vehicle. He's doing that, plus he has to do all the oil changes for the city of York. But as you know, when you're changing out an engine, that don't take a day. So now you could have got 15 vehicles oil changed that day. That doesn't happen because now you got to set aside a whole week to focus on this. Meanwhile, our street sweepers could be down, and our diesel mechanic is working on that, plus all our dumps that are out in the roads. So that's it. It's just we're at a position where now it's too much work coming in for two people. It's just not possible.
Well, we were at one, and we got us back up to two.
Well, we
now
only
you're-
had that one for a short period, like a
We've
week,
always
if
been
that.
budgeted at least.
Then we hired the two. We had two before we had two now.
No, I understand, but you're asking for another one. You're asking for another full-time employee.
That is correct.
Yeah. I think at this point I want to explain something to folks to really understand. Maybe you can understand my thinking a little bit better too. This budget will be balanced with money from the sale of the wastewater treatment plant. We've got about $177 million in there, but the city is running about a 12, depending on the year, $12 to $17 million deficit every year. That means we haven't raised your taxes. We haven't raised your taxes to actually pay for the cost of running the city. We sold the wastewater treatment plant to pay for the cost of running the city. That $177 million spun off $7.8 million for us to not raise your taxes. On top of that $7.8 million, we are using another $12 million, taking it out of the principal. So dropping that $177 million down to $165 million. So when we say that we are going to take money out of that fund and add employees, we are not expending $56,000. We're expending $56,000 of principal, which means we will not be making money off of that $56,000 to help offset the constantly increasing cost of running a city. So while I believe that the council, certainly the administration feels that this will be easier to pass the budget this year because we have these reserves. Every time we spend the reserves, we are taking from our future. So if it sounds like I'm being hard about stuff, it is. I am. Because we cannot pretend at any time that we have funds now. Those funds are meant, we got $177,000 in funds. We also have $220 million in obligations that still have to be paid for pensions and health care. So we're still 40-some million, or $40-some million in the hole. So if I'm being a little rough, it's because I know we can't grow this government. We can't afford the government that we have. So when the opening statement says we have to do more with less,
Yeah.
we have to do more with less because right now we're pretending that we have money. But that money, as it goes down, it becomes of less and less value every year. The goal is to use that principle to help offset so we don't have to raise taxes in a community that has some of the highest taxes in the entire Commonwealth. So, sorry if I sound hard up here, but it's because I'm trying to be fiscally responsible for a very long trajectory. And with that, I'm going to question the next position, which, that's into the next fund. So do we have any other questions with fleet?
Budget team?
No.
City council members? Public?
I just had a general question about what your statement was. So with the ARPA, the wastewater, general obligations, general budget, how long do you think we have until, like, say, an average homeowner will really feel the weight or major increases in taxes and everything like that?
I am hoping that the sale of the wastewater treatment plant will at least put us in good position for the next 10 years. It's hard to say when we look at healthcare costs increasing 1,200% in over a period of 20 years. We don't know what the next 10 years are going to look like. I would like to think that it'll last 15 years or something like that. But just to reiterate what we did when we sold the wastewater treatment plant, virtually every third-class city, and luckily I was able to talk with some of our state legislators today about this exact topic. Virtually every third-class city is failing because of the tax code based on property taxes. This tax code, created in the 1960s, was created in a time where York City and the other third-class cities had manufacturing. They had jobs. They had the highest property values in the county. They had the highest income individuals living in the city. They had the highest concentration of commercial businesses, the Bon-Ton, Bears, all the things that people remember back then. Most of that is gone. We now have the lowest income individuals. We now have some of the lowest property values. So the entire environment that was used for them to create a taxation system no longer exists. So we have all this infrastructure. We're required to have 100 police officers. Chanceford Township isn't required to have them.
0.
You know, we're required to have firefighters. And we love them all, but it's a requirement here and not other places. And so, if you talk with my fellow mayors, which I do very frequently, they will tell you that while they're struggling to make a good show of it, we are all declining virtually every year financially. So the sale of the wastewater treatment plant was meant to put us in a better position than some of these other places. And other places like Fawn Grove has 43%. I think Fawn Grove has 43% nonprofit space not paying taxes. They are also starting to see some things of not being able to afford basic infrastructure, basic services. So the goal is that enough other municipalities will also see the suffering of this tax structure that eventually the legislators in Harrisburg will have to correct for the changes that have occurred over the last 60 years. The system, the environment has changed, everything's shuffled, it's reversed. We didn't have the highway system. We didn't have malls. We didn't have suburbs. We didn't have, the world was not like it is today, but they have refused to change the taxation system. So the sale of the wastewater treatment plant was meant as a life raft for us to hang on until they get their act together and make the changes based on this changing world.
Thank you.
All right. Looks like we're moving on to environmental services, 424.
Yep. All right. On here, if you look at 44260, in this account for environmental services, only when we see like a significant increase in the budget this year for this is increase of $140,000 which is actually disposal fees increased this year. So that's the difference of the increase.
My question goes back to the salary increase, 34,000. Is that a new part-time employee? What is that?
It's an admin assistant for Parks, Recreation, and Environmental Services. Because that superintendent is the only one that does not directly have administrative help.
And is it required to be a full-time position and cannot be fulfilled by a part-time position?
Could possibly be any help possible would
I mean,
be
honestly,
greatly appreciated.
If I had to pick between all of our departments and I had to make a decision of who needs someone the least out there, I would say it's our Parks Department.
But is it can we get somebody for 29 hours?
Yeah. I mean, we would,
Is that a possibility versus 40 hours is what we're talking about. So the difference between, and again, an explanation to the public.
Yeah, we're just saying
We're
there-
allowed to have people part-time for up to 29 hours and they can fulfill
Yeah.
a lot of the
I mean,
things
it-
that we need versus as soon as we get them over 29 hours, now we have to pay for their and their family's health insurance, a good portion of it. We have to pay then for pensions, all those things that are, again, not required by most other municipalities.
yeah. I mean, honestly, if we can get a part-time person out there, I mean, that's something. Well, we do. I mean, obviously, our Parks Department is probably one of our busiest departments in the city of York. If you think about summertime, every event that goes on, they're involved in it. And they have to make sure that every park is mowed throughout the weeks in the summer. You know, for the events, they have to make sure they have everything out there, supplies for every event that goes on in the city. And that's a lot of time for Tom. You know, who's out there, you know, as a supervisor, only supervisor in that department, with as many as individuals he has working in that department. It would be good to have someone to kind of help out with like the billing stuff, to have someone in the office when we have people who are coming in, you know, because they want to take a look at a park and they have questions. We don't have anyone there because everyone's out. So it would just be nice to have someone there, just if someone comes to City Hall and comes to the Public Works Department, we have someone. And like I'm saying, it doesn't have to be a full-time position, you know, so if we can have someone part-time, that would be amazing, just to have the help out there.
Yeah, and I know that most of the planning goes on either on Friday or Monday or Tuesday because you're planning for the week or you're planning for the weekend. So if we could get somebody in there, again, let's go with that and try it.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can't get it, then I'm willing to keep the same amount if
Okay.
we can forego the health and pension side of it. So we could pay more.
Well, we have to keep equity across other similar positions in the city. We can discuss it more.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want someone doing the same work, full-time or part-time, getting paid less because we have more for this
Okay.
position. So
Well, we're gonna move that from 40010 to 40020, and
And half of it is paid through environmental services and half is paid through Parks and Rec.
so this is a $68,000.
No, there's I have to check again the workforce plan. There's the contractual pay increases for
Oh,
the
right.
Teamster members, and then Tom Landis's, so there's more there than just one position.
Okay.
And truth to be told, and Mayor's doing his job, and I'm trying to support the staff that we have, is that is another position, especially with Tom and his responsibility to be out there and trying to find funding for the park department. Having a supervisor would be very beneficial, but I understand the stance of not adding more positions. So, but if it was a superintendent, a supervisor, and then administrative, that would be perfect, but obviously not something that we can necessarily do.
Hey, I like that you're willing to talk about the part-time position, so I'm good with
Yeah.
that.
That's my only question with that department,
Okay.
Or with
I have
that,
nothing else.
Bureau.
All right, budget team, do you have any questions?
No.
City council members, any questions? Public, any questions? Yes, sir. Please state your name.
Steve Buffington. I was just wondering, with the administrative assistant in the Public Works Department, could consideration be given to possibly 2 20-hour part-time persons, not incurring any legacy costs, and probably not much more, if any more, than the amount that was budgeted.
Well, the difficulty I do recognize, and that's why I said try it and then come back to me, is that people want and need full-time work, but there are sometimes people that are available that only want 20 some hours of work. So yeah, I'm open to that, but my experience is that you're more likely to get a 29-hour a week person than two 20-hour-a-week people. That's just, again, but
Might be worth a try.
again, I'm open to the amount of funding put into the salary. I'm just not open to encumbering our future generations with the legacy costs.
Thanks, Steve. Anybody else?
All right. Oh, I'm sorry, I did turn it off.
No, go right ahead. Take the show now, the recreation.
Oh, no, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, go right ahead. Just come on up. Don't have to raise your hand.
Hi, Elsbeth Bupp. It's the refuse collection line 44250, right above refuse disposal, or am I ahead of us? On page 62. You're good. There's a 2.6 million for repairs performed by an outside vendor on the Bobcat skid loader, the Kubota, and the tenant sweeper. But I also noticed we had under liquid fuels cleaning on page 52, there was some money to repair street sweepers, leaf vacs, and Vector trucks. Now, maybe these are all different
Yeah, no,
things.
that's,
I don't know what the Kubota, tenant sweeper, and Bobcat skid loader are.
yeah, that shouldn't be with refuse collection, so that's a typo in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What is the 2.6 million then, if it's different than the next line item? I don't know the
Trash
difference
bill.
between the,
That's, the refuse collection is our hauler, the trash hauler. Yeah, the contract.
The contract.
And then we have to pay to dispose of the trash that they haul, they pick up.
there's a cost for picking it up and then a cost for dumping it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where you dispose it, it's a different entity, yes.
Yeah, it took me a while. Once I figured that one out, I felt like I understood the entire budget. Yeah. Yeah. And also just, this is also our costs for our refuse charges within the city are associated with, and there's no proposed increases to those for this year.
Do we have a contract, how long is the contract with the current waste collector, is that a competitive bid, as I recall?
It is,
Unfortunately, it's not competitive.
Yeah.
We have one person that apply. We have one company that applies.
Yeah.
So it ends up not being competitive. It's geographically limited. You know, unlike a construction project where people might bid from California to come in and do a construction project, nobody's going to bid to come and haul your trash because they have to set up an entire system here. We have basically 2 or 3 within South Central Pennsylvania, and the last time we received one and only one bid.
Yeah.
So there wasn't much choice in it.
Yeah.
It's really,
And around this area, we're very unique in size and, days and recycling plus trash and, yeah, so it's a lot. So for a lot of companies, they can just take more contracts with smaller, towns and kind of operate that way, opposed to coming in with the city, because it takes all your manpower, and you have to have a big enough crew and enough trucks and everything.
and you got to weave around cars and alleys and things like that. It's not an easy task.
and trust me, I threw out the idea of, well, what would it look like if we brought it in-house? And they were like,
Tried.
that would cost much more than
Pensions and
$2.6 million.
healthcare. Pensions and healthcare. Pensions and
We can't just buy one truck, so we have to
Right.
buy a whole fleet at one time. So
Yep.
All right, any more questions for environmental services? All right, now we will go into Parks and Recreation.
all right, kind of going in through here. I mean, Tom did a great job with his budget. Kind of kept everything the same. You will see some small increases, and obviously Tom gave us some great explanations, descriptions for what he was trying to do. But if you look down at which is 44400. Which is other contractual services. I mean, if you see that, it went up from $7,000 to $37,000. Last year, we did the laser leveling infields, which is the reason why we get people to come to our complex that want to play softball and want to have these big tournaments. And hopefully in that, moving forward, we're going to start seeing, like some bigger organizations that'll be coming and hoping to see some bigger leagues that'll come down and participate as well. I'm in the recreation budget.
And that's in 70. Point, there's several cost centers in recreation.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
So
I
that's under the
apologize.
00089 cost center, so it's page 70 for everyone.
I was trying to use Nona's,
Took me a
but
while
I
to
don't
get
have
there.
my notes in Nona's
Yeah.
budget, so it's a little difficult for me, so.
Yeah, cost center 0084, you first start with the administration, and then it goes into the parks maintenance, which is where this expense is. So where is that? Page 70, under other contractual services. But there is a reduction in parks equipment.
Yes.
And I see the shift from administration to, there's a decrease of 54,000 in the wages for the administration, but then there's an increase of 33,000 in the maintenance side. Can you explain why there's a reduction here in,
Because I have to check the workforce plan.
okay, that's an,
Yeah, it might have been the cost center associated with one individual might have been under 84 in error. And I think I remember having to make that correction, that they were writing under administration when they're actually part of the maintenance team. So I'll confirm that.
okay. Well, and if that's the case, I mean, here's part of your money. You went down 54,000 in administration, but went up only 33,000, so there's still 21,000
Not bad.
difference. That's a net gain of 21,000, and then you can put that into your part-time people that you need.
Also a note, at the very beginning, recreation is, the Recreation and Parks budget is funded out of Fund 20, which is the Recreation Fund, which is separate than the general fund. So it does have its own revenue source of real estate taxes, and I did speak to Treasurer Jeff Coate, and since it's in this budget and not in his, he's like, I don't know if I checked that to make sure that it is up to date. So we have note to do that before the proposed. Hopefully it'll go up, but I did want to note, it's at 887,421 at the moment, so.
Kim, that probably will go up because the one in Fund 10 did go up.
Right, so. And under this is also, like I said, it's park administration for Parks and Rec, park maintenance, and then also the recreation programs are in here as well. So the programs at Grimes Gym, the youth, the summer playground program during the summer, and then also a handful of events that are specifically ran by either Tom Landis or Diaz Woodard that there are funding for. And you'll see some of them out of Fund 10, and then some of them are under Fund 26 as special projects, because those are the ones that we're definitely are paid by donations.
So, and I have a few questions here. Where is Diaz in this budget?
Youth programs.
I only see part-time.
No, he's
I only see
under
part-time.
administration.
Okay.
Oh, position, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to alter that. Diaz is, I believe, with your permission, going to start working on the reprogram program with the York City Police Department. So this is something that we were working on to expand the interaction between the York City Police and our youth in the community. We're hoping to do that as the Sylvia Newcomb Center comes online, but Diaz has been in talks with, and I have been in talks with the York City School District. We believe we can start the programming before the Sylvia Newcomb Center is available to us. The initial discussion was about working out of Ferguson. So with your permission, we are going to add that task, which kind of combines the police department efforts with the public works department, and we will increase the salary there for these additional tasks based on coming out of the reprogram budget from the police department.
Okay.
So I already,
Right, which we will have to, at the moment, the amount that's left in the reprogram budget was for the building, so we either have to pull from that or ask to add more to it.
okay. I was told, but I guess I may be incorrect, that that was also for the programs involved. So
there's- it's
whether
just
it's,
the building. And a vehicle that we had already purchased the prior year.
okay. So, but I know some of the funding came from the Rotary Club. I know there were some other funds available.
They may have some funding in their Fund 26 going towards it, but specifically out of ARPA, it was
Okay.
just
Well,
the,
then perhaps out of Fund 26 might be where
Okay.
might be a good location to look for that. And then just a quick correction on the special events of the City of York. The contract is now with Working Progress. That the contract listed here has not been in existence for a couple of years.
Okay.
I think everything else is correct in that. It's just the name
Okay.
in the description is incorrect. Next page, under the Labor Day events, I see a $10,000 reduction in the sponsorships. We have been increasing again. A long time ago, Labor Day was quite a big deal around here. We had the Labor Day parade, we had fireworks, we had the yard sale at Kiwanis Lake, all kinds of good events. But I'm seeing that the expectation is that the sponsorships are going down for Labor Day. So I just wanted to use this opportunity to seek sponsorship, to ask people if they're interested in having the Labor Day fireworks, that they either themselves look into their wallets or maybe ask your company if they want to sponsor something, because this is something that is a long-time tradition that unfortunately has been diminishing. We brought it back strong, at least bringing back the fireworks, and they do an excellent job having events out there. The events this past year were great, but we cannot continue to maintain that at this point. The expenses are, we're having to drastically reduce the investment in that event because we saw the sponsorships go down. One question I had was that there were 2 locations of the back-to-school event. And I'm wondering, is this because they're different funds? So at 00, then they're both under 00347 back to school.
one's under Fund 10 and one's under Fund 26.
Okay, so back to school summer parks program, revenues 57.5. That makes it look like we are spending $28,000 out of Fund 10 for the
No,
back.
the summer program is different. Above that, the total
Oh,
for back to school.
back to school. Okay, is a negative.
Yes.
Very good. So the summer parks program itself
Is the 28.
is where we're spending $28,000 out of taxpayer dollars to try and assist our youth here in the community.
Yep.
Very good. Huge reduction in the food expense for trunk or treat, from $15,000 down to $1,000. I'm assuming that that's from donations. In-kind
We don't do 15,000 in it. I think last year it kind of made it through, but it shouldn't have been in there, so we brought it back down to 1,000.
Okay.
Yes.
That's a lot of candy.
Yeah.
Yes. No.
I mean, if the donations are there, the donations are
No,
there.
so that's why
That's
we-
not coming out of the general
Yeah.
fund.
That's why
But
we
was
brought
a-
that back down.
Quite a surprise there. Also, the summer movies theories, and I'm sorry, this is just kind of a silly question because it's only $100 in the budget. But what medical supplies do we need for the movie series?
First aid kit?
Yeah, we always buy kits to get everything started off, so we have them on
Doesn't the
site.
Bureau of Health have plenty of those kinds of things? It just seemed unnecessary when we have our own Bureau of Health to be going out.
And I'll be, Mayor, we keep it. We don't always use it because sometimes we have it from the year before, but it's just $100. We just try to keep it in just in case we do need it.
I don't think we need it.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, if we can provide something from within our existing structure,
Well, it depends, because the Health Bureau, I mean, if they have a grant where it is to get first aid kits for either the public or for the city, then they would be able to. But I do know that Sam, who just went out for a moment, is that she did give note that when it comes to like COVID-related public, mask and hand sanitizer and whatnot, that she did give note that they're not going to have funding for that anymore to support us, and that we may need to add it to our budget. So it might be similar.
I think to speak to that, Kim. Monica Kruger, Director of the York City Bureau of Health. I think when it comes to some of these items that we've been very fortunate to support city employees and departments with, there is not, just like we've talking about, it's not an unlimited pot of money. So what I could say today, I might not be able to say 6 months from now. So we do have a limited amount of funds. Our concern was that during COVID, everybody looked to us for gloves, hand sanitizer, wipes and whatever, and we did dispense quite a bit of that, but those COVID funds aren't not going to be continued. So we just wanted people to be aware of that you need to put in your budgets, plan for that bad day situation, that we cannot be always viewed as the department that will have the ability to support everybody else. We have no problem supporting things when we can, but we just need people to be aware of the fact that isn't always going to be a done deal.
very good. Can you get back to me on that, or then have Diaz explain to me what exactly?
Yeah, that's no problem. And like I said, if we take it out, it doesn't matter either. So
Well, no, I mean, if he needs to buy a $100 kit, then
Yeah.
he needs to buy a $100 kit, but it just didn't click with me why.
I got you.
The summer concert series, then, 00395. Are we not receiving sponsorships? Is that $6,600 out of the general fund?
Well, it's not the general fund, it's the recreation fund, but
It's still taxpayer money.
yes.
Okay, so there's another opportunity for sponsorship. I believe that our Cherry Lane concerts are all sponsored. We're not paying. Now, we do have a contract to manage all of the events in general, but they are out getting sponsorships for those. So I'd
That's
like
correct.
to
And
have
we
a
had some.
discussion.
We've had some in the past. What we noticed has been a lot tougher since COVID. Trying to get back to get some of these businesses to start, giving some of these donations as they did in the past, and that's just what we're seeing.
Okay. Yeah, I think we really need to look at movie series and the concert series to see. I mean, you're not talking about a lot of money here, but you are when it comes to taking the money out of our principal that we are trying to get money, trying to build dividends from. I think you explained the last question, and I have the park engineering. Oh, no, the park engineering. So we, on the very last page, I know that the council has approved investment in Bance Park and Williams Park and the basketball courts. Where is continued park engineering? Don't we need some of that?
Engineering for
Yeah.
the basketball
Like
courts and
no,
stuff?
no. For as we move forward, so what are we going to get done this year? And are we at a point where we're going to need money for design? Or are we expecting that in 2024, with all these surveys coming in and stuff like that,
Yeah.
that we are going to gather the surveys but not begin any kind of, I didn't see any kind of money for the implementation, the first phases of the implementation. I believe that 2025, we're going to be looking for funding to do the actual work, right?
Yeah,
I
CS.
thought 2024 was going to be part of the engineering time.
That's in my engineering money with CS Davidson also.
Okay, so that is included in that.
That is.
Okay, very good. That's all I needed. That's all I've got for Public Works.
Any questions for Recreation and Park from the budget team? No. Council members? No. Public?
I just had a quick question. What is the Rotary building?
It's the Rotary Cranich Building is out at Albemarle Park. Is that Lehman Street? Lehman and East King?
Okay.
It's the backside of the Comcast building.
Oh, okay. I
Yes.
know what you mean now. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, that's one of the few city facilities that we still have, and that is mostly leased at. Well, that's where White Rose Television.
White Rose Television is in the
where
back.
White Rose Television is, and it's also leased
From a church.
to a church.
Yes.
All right, real quick before Chaz runs away, we do have the ice rink budget, which at this point, we no longer have a lease payment that comes out of that for equipment. So all we see is the revenue that's coming in from the organization that is paying us to use it for their services. So for
That's
the
a
first
good thing. Nothing but revenue. Nothing
Yeah,
but revenue.
I mean, first time in how many years we're actually making something off of, not that we don't have debt still associated with it, but we're making some money on it, so.
All profit.
Yeah, there you go, all profit. All right, does anyone have any questions about the ice rink? Nope, we're good. Okay, now we're done with public.
All right. I'd like to say thank you to the budget team. Thank you to Mayor for your time and those for coming out, listening to what we had to say tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, Nona, are you ready?
He took a whole hour and a half.
It was my fault. It was my fault.
I'm going to work it.
And I apologize now to all the people that I said that we'd be out of here by 7 o'clock today. All my fault.
All right, we move into the Department of Economic Community Development. We've got Nona Watson, the director, and just like the last couple departments, we start with Economic Community Development Administration as a budget, and then we'll roll into Permits and Inspection, Health Bureau, and Housing. But Nona, you want to start us off?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to first just kind of read just a few things, some of our accomplishments, so that everyone knows exactly what we do. The mission of the Department of Economic and Community Development. Our mission is to foster economic growth by providing opportunities for our businesses and communities to grow, thrive, and succeed. DECD works with our partners to enhance and sustain economic prosperity, create and execute development opportunities, revitalize neighborhoods, ensure safe, decent, and affordable housing for all income levels, and provide healthy options for residents within the city. DECD is comprised of 5 bureaus with a total of actually 57 employees. We have the Bureau of Economic Development, Bureau of Health, Bureau of Housing Services, Bureau of Permits and Inspections, Bureau of Planning and Zoning. In 2023, we have taken the lead and or supported various funding opportunities for residents and businesses. We partnered with real estate developers, created programs to meet the needs of our communities, and served as administrator for various federal, state, and local grants. We work diligently to address the needs of individuals, families, and businesses impacted by COVID-19. With the ever-changing conditions of our economy, our residents are faced with many challenges, including finding jobs, housing choices, navigating through this health and financial crises, and more. We pay close attention to what's happening and create ways to address these challenges. COVID-19 hit all of us hard in one way or another, but we did not take down. We were short-staffed and challenged in many ways, but DECD banded together to continue providing programs, services, technical assistance, and grant opportunities. Many of our employees completed projects outside of their regular scope of work, and in the 2 years that I've been with the city, not once did I hear, "That's not my job." We also took this opportunity to cross-train many of our employees, which resulted in new career paths and an increase in salaries for those employees. The Department of Economic and Community Development team looks for every opportunity to collaborate with other city departments and community partners to address concerns, leverage funds. In addition, we continue to revisit and create policies, programs, and procedures to uplift our city, bring about positive change, and enhance the quality of life for all. And with that said, I'm ready to go into the budget.
Alrighty, I'm taking a look already before anyone else brings it up. Is the adjustment for salaries for the 94,000? I can account for the request to add an administrative assistant to community and economic development, which we will work with the mayor in terms of a full-time or part-time position. But the additional increase, I'm gonna have to look at the workforce plan. I'm not sure why there was so much put into there. Immediately, I do notice, I think two of the community ecosystem coordinators are in that budget when they should be further down. But again, I'll take a look at essentially the structure to make sure it's correct.
Okay.
Mayor, you missed it.
You missed my,
Yep, we're all done. Yeah, right? Nope. Specifically, this is the last, I promise, spot where a position request was put in for an administrative assistant for, administratively for economic community development. And that Nona and I just discussed it, that we'll work with you to see if that's full-time or part-time. There was an administrative assistant many, many moons ago, and I know that Nona has been utilizing additional help that we've had funding through professional services for, and she's just looking to bring somebody in-house.
So through professional services, are we looking to reduce that professional services budget, that amount, and then make it a full-time person? And then I guess my question is, what's the long-term, what's our allocation? 35,000 for health, per employee for healthcare? So we need that. And then whatever the pension costs are. So you'd have to diminish your professional services by that significantly for me to begin to consider it.
okay, understood.
But, and historically, yes, historically, just the Economic Development Department 20 years ago had 8 individuals.
Yeah,
But we were also bankrupting the city.
yeah,
So we gotta balance our, I think you essentially have 2 now, right? Maybe 2.5, depending on how Jada is working in different departments. But, yeah, unfortunately, we don't have the luxury.
okay.
So we
I
will
get it.
try. But that is my first question. That's the first line item, the salaries and wages.
Yeah, and I also have to double check why it's so high, because it shouldn't be that high just for that one
Yeah.
administrative position.
And then, wait, what's up 40K? Oh, that shouldn't have been in there, all right. Oh yeah, and then here your other professional services budget doubled instead of going down. So you just told me that it was going to be coming out of other professional services.
And that might be something that's an adjustment. She made the request, but she might not have known that I put it in the budget
Yeah, it is.
where there would be the opportunity to
Okay.
reduce it.
Okay.
So we'll discuss it.
All right.
And also, I'd just like to say that that additional $25,000 came from a different line item. It was originally under Blanda, under economic development, so I decreased his by 53,000. And so part of it is here in the 25,000. So
Perfect,
it's-
perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
And we are at 3 community ecosystem coordinators. I'm considering hiring the 4th, so that should be put back into, back to its original.
Yeah, I did find that in the workforce plan that I have 2 of the ecosystem coordinators hanging out up in the general fund, the other salary line. that's
Got it.
94. Blah.
Got it.
So yeah, I'll fix that.
Okay. Yeah, that's good for the general. Economic, or wait a minute. So,
So then within this department, we have separate cost centers for economic development and then also for planning and zoning. So after ecosystem coordinators and the loan repayment and Kiva, we have economic development.
Yeah, so we have a decrease in salaries and wages under 00383. What are we looking at there?
Don't know, I'll have to check.
Okay, that went down 12,000. Other professional services, is this where you're talking about, you reduced it for Blanda, 54,000?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good there. Let me see how far I can go before we're on the next one. Oh, so we got to planning and zoning so far, right?
Yep.
Okay, all right, I'm good so far, thank you.
Okay.
Anything in planning and zoning?
I don't know, did you ask everybody else for the first one? Or
We're still in the same actual
Okay,
budget
so we're,
department. Yep.
so we're staying with plan, okay,
Yep.
we're taking them all at once? Okay, salaries and wages, 40010, under planning, down 146,000.
Don't know.
Why is that?
I have to check the workforce plan.
Okay, and then, yeah, then the associated FICA and then O and E, you're down another 26,000. So somewhere either positions got moved to another department or something odd is going on there.
Most definitely.
CS Davidson consulting fees have doubled. Why, what is the purpose of that?
Well, we always run out and have to go back to Kim to add more money for consulting fees, so.
Okay.
And there are, is that our engineering fees?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no, this is planning consulting.
It's still they run out of that every time.
And then it depends on the number of projects that are presented.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we always run out.
Yep. So that almost could be a good thing.
And
that
then
we've got more
stenographer services. Why are stenographer services so expensive? Why are no, so our budget for stenographer services is doubled. Why?
That's part of other professional services. I don't think that's the entire other professional services.
Right. Well,
Also,
okay,
marketing can't.
so it's for the stenographer services is $9,600. But then when I said I took the $53,000 from Blanda's budget, I included $20,400 in that line item for the rest of that, which says marketing, comp plan, city vision, and promote city workers for the recompete program. So that's why it's so high there.
Okay. All right, now we move into, are we up to ARPA projects?
Yep.
Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a point where I want to make sure that we look at these as we, council particularly, as we approach the end of the allocations to make sure that this is where we want the last of the allocations to be. And then I'm not sure which of it is additional money and which of it is carryover money from previous years that have not been spent.
In this case, these are all like the grant programs.
Yeah.
So it's not supplemental money, it's carryover money that we hadn't issued out yet.
Okay, so this is the initial, this is the initial, so I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. This is the initial money that was approved by council and myself in prior budgets.
Yes.
And then, so, can you explain to me the 750,000 Penn Market? So we've all agreed that we funded this, but I don't understand the description. 200,000 approved by ARPA committee, additional 125,000 approved.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, except that does total the 325 from above that we're contributing from the general fund from the proceeds of the sale of the plant. I don't think that lines up with the description doesn't match the item.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, we just haven't spent any of it yet, so it keeps rolling over, but yeah, those amounts don't match up, so.
Okay, so I'd like to have that figured out. But it is also a great time to mention that our 3E grants for minority business owners, women business owners, and disabled-owned businesses are open right now, and you can apply at yorkcity.org, as well as our entrepreneur grants, which at one point we kind of called the Penn Market grants. So that's an opportunity to, you would certainly get a kind of bonus points, but at this point, Penn Market's full, right? Yeah, Penn Market is full, so please go and visit Penn Market and support our businesses there. But that is a way that we are using the ARPA money to support entrepreneurs. And then I'm assuming, but I don't see it, is the nonprofit grant program in here?
No, it's not in my budget.
But that's where it should be, right?
Yeah, that was
I thought,
yeah, that needs to be added, because we pulled the current budget, which it wasn't in yet, in order to build off of this. So the
Okay.
nonprofit was recently approved, that needs to be done, and there's actually about three or four other economic community development ARPA programs that are going to be up for consideration this month. So we could be adding to this before the proposed budget, because of course, if it is approved this year, I'd like to already have it in the budget for next year. Otherwise, we'll do an amendment at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and actually, that's one of the points I wanted to get to, Council. While I recognize that you are going to be voting on some things here in November and possibly even in December, it makes a lot more sense for us if your votes are more of a vote to allow us to put it into the budget before we introduce the budget to you, than it is to amend the stuff down the road, because we're not going to spend that money. If you voted in as an amendment, you can do whatever you want. But if you voted in as an amendment to the 2023 budget, we're not going to have time to spend it in 2023. But if you want to do that, it would be an acknowledgement that you would allow us to just include it in the 2024 budget as we submit it to you. Does that make sense? No, the
Yeah,
things
the
that
other
are coming, we're
ones,
talking about the
the
things
housing
coming up
one.
this month that you started discussing in committee.
Yeah, and as soon as there are budget amendments for '23, we'll include them in '24. And timing-wise,
That's what I'm saying.
if we can do it before the proposal is met, or even if it's afterwards, that might be a suggestion that we ask that council amends the proposal to make sure they're in there, so we don't have to do a budget amendment at the beginning of the year. So we'll work together to make sure that
That's
they
what I'm
work out.
saying. If you see fit to approve those in 2023, I'm letting you know between now and when we submit, I'm letting you know that we would like to just include it in the 2024 budget so that we don't have to go through the whole rigmarole of reapproving something next year. It doesn't make any sense. I'm good. I'm up to permits and inspections.
right.
Budget team, do you have any questions?
No.
Council members, any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have never really understood what the community ecosystem coordinators are, so I'd love to have an explanation about that.
Sure. So I implemented this. Unfortunately, it really got derailed by COVID because it's a very personal approach to helping people in neighborhoods. So, and actually, well, I won't go into the origin story, but this is something that was done in other communities that I saw. Well, I will say John Fetterman did it in Braddock when he helped rebuild that community. That was a community that was really struggling, and they came in and he and his wife really helped connect people with resources. What they do here is there's 4 parts of it. There were 3 main parts. They go around door to door and meet the people in the community and talk to them and find out what their needs are. Because the people that need us the most are those that don't come to City Hall, that don't sometimes go to the nonprofits or know about the nonprofits that can help them. You're talking about individuals, single moms with kids. You're talking about people that are not leaving their houses, you know, that are essentially shut-ins. You're talking about individuals that might have some other kind of issues. Our elders, our ecosystem coordinators have been specifically effective with our elders in the neighborhoods that are not getting out there. So their first job is to really meet the people in the neighborhoods. And each is assigned to a neighborhood. So far, we've gone between having, I think we had 5 maximum at one point, but we've gone between essentially 2 and 5 and assigning them specifically to our lowest income neighborhoods. If I could have 16 of them, I would put them all over the city. But and this is all funded by WellSpan, by the way. And then they're supposed to go around and learn about all the locations in the neighborhoods. Like, where could we bring programs? Where could we have meetings? Where could CareerLink come once a week into that neighborhood? And I will tell you, this all came about from a community meeting that happened after Gus Griggs was killed. A young, very promising young man got killed out on the East End. And after that, about 400 individuals from the community came together and they said, these are the things that we need in each neighborhood. We need them in our neighborhoods. Not we have to go and get those services over here because we don't have time to go over there. Or when it comes to recreation, we don't want our kids going from East Princess Street to St. Matt's necessarily when they have to cross over areas that, you know, they want their kids within 2 or 3 blocks of them, so they don't have to worry about them. So this idea that a lot of groups have about duplication of services, they've got it all backwards. We need duplication of services. We need a lot of duplication of services because the services aren't getting to the people where the people are. So the goal of this is that the ecosystem coordinators learn what the people need, then they find the locations, then they talk to the different service providers and bring those service providers into the neighborhoods. So, and then they alert the people when the service providers are going to be there. That's really the structure of this. And there is a 4th component where if they can raise funds to help the neighborhood, they can do part of that too. But that's really the point of this, is to find a way to get to those that need us most.
And what is their accountability and reporting? And who do they report to?
They report
What is-
directly to, well, we've had coordinators, but they report directly to my office. Essentially, they work for me.
And so there is reporting on a regular monthly
Yes.
basis?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah.
And how many do we have currently?
We have 3 currently. Well, we just got one back. So one had quit for a little while, and she just ran into me and asked me if she could have her job back, that she loved it. She was being so successful up in the northern neighborhood, working out of Jabez Ministries up there. And they created they created programs for children. They created programs for elders. And that's the thing, is that what they do is organize people that want to do good things. They're not responsible for doing all the good things. They're responsible for organizing, getting the good things done. Like, we're not trying to replace all the different nonprofits. We're trying to get those nonprofits to show up in the different neighborhoods, kind of create a schedule. Hey, let's go to the Northeast neighborhood every Wednesday night, and then the people start getting to know, hey, every Wednesday night, this particular nonprofit is here to help us. And we've seen other things, like, I have to give the biggest shout out, one of the biggest shout outs to the Martin Library. Martin Library, what's that program called? The Here For You program out of Martin Library. They have essentially done exactly what I've been trying to see done in our different neighborhoods. And recently, in a meeting with them, I asked them if they could interact a little bit more with folks in the Northeast neighborhood so that because the Northeast neighborhood, only 1 block away from the library, is one of our more economically depressed neighborhoods. People there need assistance. And the Northeast Neighborhood Association has been doing a great job, but the library has been bringing in all kinds of different groups to help with different things, and just more communication. You know, we have so many good things going on in this city. A lot of it is lack of communication, and particularly, again, those that need us the most, a lot of them aren't online. We have to go back to some of the traditional methods of actually face-to-face communication to get to those that need the help most.
So, but the Martin Library programs are not, they are not a result of or part of our,
No, not at all.
okay.
No.
Wanted to make sure.
Yeah. But it's the kind of thing,
You've done it independently.
yes. But it is the kind of thing and represents, again, out of the job as, and this is very minimally funded. You know, these are part-time positions that work in the evenings and weekends when people are available. And the goal is just to get as much good done in your neighborhood as possible. Get as many resources, find out who needs the resources, and yeah, reach those and improve the lives of those that are falling between the cracks. Yep.
Mayor Helfrich, would you be able to provide us prior to the budget with some data on these positions?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Just another question about it. How long does WellSpan plan to fund this group? Or
Well, so WellSpan gives us, WellSpan a few years ago increased its annual donation to the city of York. The WellSpan was giving $450,000 to the city. They now cut us a check for $1 million every year. Now, again, that is very generous of them. They are a nonprofit and therefore don't have to pay property taxes like some of the other businesses in the city, but they do provide us with lots of services and this cash donation. And then and then I propose a budget back to them for what I want to use the $1 million for. So, for instance, this past year, $830,000 of the $1 million went to buying the new fire trucks, because the price of those fire trucks was going up $200,000 every few months. I think if you heard, the expenses that the chief was talking about last night. So we needed to get those done immediately. We couldn't slowly build up the capital to do that. So we used some of that funding. The year before that, more of it went to the police department. And now I've told the commissioner, now that we got the fire trucks, next year more will go back to the police department. So it's really public safety and health outreach. And so they have all I can tell you is that I will continue to propose it as long as I see value in it. And WellSpan will evaluate it and determine if that fits into their goals.
And so the money that they're giving, it has strings attached. It's not like it's part of the pilot program that.
No, it is definitely not considered a pilot. Their position is that they do not owe taxes. They are a nonprofit, and they are not do not want to be categorized in that way.
Okay.
It is a fund that they are giving to the city of York.
Okay.
Please, Bob Riley, anybody else out there from WellSpan, correct me if I've misspoken, but that is the messaging that it has been shared with me.
Any other questions from council or the public? All right, then we roll into permits and inspections.
Yeah, this is pretty standard, but the second page, 40010, that's the new BCO, the $100,000 increase. Is that correct?
That's part of it, yes.
Well, that should be most of it.
There's also COLA increases as well.
Oh, okay. All right, so I was talking to Chief Buffington about this earlier. I see other contractual services, 44400, fees incurred for the third-party inspection agency for Uniform Construction Code inspections, hiring of the BCO. Now, that has been zeroed out. Has that been zeroed out because of the BCO?
No, what happened
Or did
was.
it get moved?
Yeah, what happens essentially over the last several years, we have shifted from funding those expenses out of the 000 cost center and the other contractual services to the third-party inspection cost center underneath. Is that where it is, Chief? Because that one's zero, that one's,
No,
That-
we
that- the
zeroed out
number's wrong.
that $890,000 line item that we found.
yeah, essentially what happened is
what
we
purpose?
were looking to shift them to another line item, to third party. And last year, we ended up keeping it in both of them.
Correct.
In error, as an error. So what I do see here, though, is that, first of all, there's accidentally 2 lines for other contractual services in the 000 cost center, but that we also need to confirm that you have the correct amount in the inspection fees for third party, because it looked like, I'm looking at the revenue, the expenses, it says 750,000, adjustment 250,000 for $1 million, so that makes sense then. So we've actually increased it.
Yeah.
I was
And
missing
the fact is that we have no idea whatsoever what the next year is going to look like now that we have an in-house BCO. So it's my understanding that we're just maintaining the regular budget because we can't predict.
Absolutely, and bearing in mind that we're coming from a third-party agency that had numerous employees to cover the whole city to essentially right now one person while we build up in-house staff to get additional certifications. So it's our intention to continue our relationship with that third party, but in a much scaled-back manner. Something happens to our guy, he's out for a month or whatever, we still have an obligation to get plans reviewed and returned, so they would be a standby. But again, that hiring was after I created the budget line item, and Kim and I had talked, and we thought, let's let that sit for now so that we don't have any unforeseen circumstances. And
I agree completely. And just, again, for the benefit of council, the goal here is to maintain the numbers that we have had, but any work that our in-house people do is now going to add revenue to the budget. It's not going to add any expenses to the budget. But we don't know how much that revenue is going to be. It could be 20,000, it could be $1 million. We have no idea. It's based on the projects that the new individual will be able to take on and certify. So, if you will go with us on that ride, that is what we're proposing for you, that we hope to have much more revenue, but we have no way to account for it. Or predict it, I should say.
And it's really, we get the revenue in, it's just that we have less of an expense because of not having the third party, so we get to keep more of it.
correct, that's always I call it a pass-through line item. We take it in and then we pass it through to another agency, so.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I have no other questions.
Okay, budget team, any questions?
No.
Council members, any questions? Public, any questions? Come on up.
Hi, Elspeth Bupp. Are these the property maintenance inspectors? Is that what's,
Yes.
and how many are there? Is that covered, the 879,000 salary line, is that?
They're covered in 2 areas at the moment. This is an example of one of the ARPA funding where it has continued. It was the blessing given to fund it for the years that we can. So we have, we're up to 11 or 12 now, right? We have 2 paid out of ARPA and then 10 out of the general fund.
I got a question too. Last year, I remember a question came up. Manuel Gomez brought up about having body armor for property inspectors. I see that's in the budget again. And then it says violence against code officials has been increasing. How many cases has there been since that time last year to this time now? I was just curious.
That's a national statistic. That's a national statistic. We were very fortunate this past year to not have any incidents, but again, that's something that you can't predict. Our inspectors go into every area of the city, daylight, dark time, often by themselves, or always by themselves, unless it's some type of organized detail where there's more than one person, but generally they are by themselves. Nona and I have been working back and forth on the body armor question. I don't believe we're going to be able to get that accomplished this year yet, because we want to make sure we do the right thing. We want to protect our personnel while not necessarily making them look like police officers or looking militaristic. So we're taking our time and looking at this very closely to see that we can do it as gently as we possibly can, or with the least amount of impact to the customers that we serve while protecting our employees. So the anticipation is that that will not get completed this year, so it was included for next year.
All right, any other questions for permits and inspection? All right, then we are moving into health. In health, I wanted to point out that finance and the budget team and administration, the Health Bureau, we have been working over the last, this will be the 3rd year's worth of budget, to figure out the best way to represent health's budget for us operationally and transparency's sake, but also giving them something that they can administer. Because I've learned a lot about how health works over the last several years. And when we talk about the Health Bureau, we're talking about 2 budgets. We're talking about their grant budgets that are with the organization that they're getting money from, and our operating budget. And in the past, the dollar amounts were the same, but the way they were structured were completely different, which made a complete nightmare in terms of us trying to keep track on the finance end of what's being spent and what's getting reimbursed, and then a complete nightmare on health side in terms of them having to, when almost the majority of their grants are all reimbursable. So we have to have the expense happen first, then they have to document, they have to submit an invoice to the grantor to get reimbursement for. So we realized early on it was not working. So we've made steps, and I'd say little steps, but big steps the last couple of years until we've gotten to the point of what you see for 2024, which I'm personally very excited about. I think this is between encouraging administration to budget within, like that they have control of what buckets that they are budgeting operationally for the potential multiple buckets that they have available to them in their grant. An example of that would be that we've kind of narrowed it down to other professional services, other supplies and materials, contractual services, like just a couple of them, because what happens is their grant might be categorized with more different options, but they do have the flexibility that if they realize that either they need to pull from one of the planned projects some funds because either they weren't able to use it or one of the other project needs it, they do have the ability to ask for adjustments. So they do that frequently. And every time they would need an adjustment, if our budget for operating budget was too itemized, then that would potentially result in a transfer needing to be done that either the business administrator might be able to approve depending on the amount, or we'd have to go to council. So by limiting the number of buckets that we have available for them to expense out their budgets with, but still making sure that we're consistent in terms of, okay, these types of expenses are always coming out of this expense line item, then we've been able to reduce the number of transfers within our operating budget to keep up with all the transfers they have in their grant budget. So I think that's been helpful. Also, going into it, I believe Sam realized that the way they did categorize from the grant budget to the operating budget didn't always match between grants. So one might consider, training in one bucket and the other one puts it in another. So we've also been consistent with that. So long story short is that we've worked really hard to come up with an operating budget that's beneficial for the city operations, but also for their grant administration. The big change with this one this year is that almost all of their grants have an association of people, positions, and salaries. When you have salaries, then we, of course, have fringe benefit costs associated with it. So we've had difficulty in the past associating the expense that's allocated to them, which, of course, we all talked about allocations last night, and what they can claim as reimbursement from their grants as fringe benefits, which they're all a certain percentage based on the salary that you're submitting for reimbursement. They'll give you the salary refunded plus the established percentage towards the fringe benefits. So it was difficult to keep track of exactly how much of the Health Bureau grants were actually covering the established allocations for fringe benefit and indirect cost. So last year we had moved all the expenses associated with indirect cost to just the general fund and a cost center 000. We're like, all right, we just need a home for it. And then what we did was we transferred and budgeted for the transfer of the indirect cost reimbursement that they receive from the individual grants over to the general fund 000 cost center to cover those expenses. The fringe benefits were still within each of the grants, and that did not work out. So this year, what you're seeing is that all the fringe benefits associated with the positions that we are currently filled or budgeting for the city, and all the indirect costs associated with the operations of the Health Bureau as a whole are included in, it's the first thing you see, the general fund with the cost center 000. In addition to fringe benefits and indirect costs, they do have an amount of rent and vehicle insurance that they don't specifically have a grant that covers. So what you see here is we put all the expenses in there, but then we totaled up all the maximum fringe benefit and indirect cost reimbursement that is eligible through the grants and backed out the expenses over in the general fund so that we could see that if the full amount of those expenses are requested for reimbursement, that will cover the expenses that are in the general fund. So at the moment, budget-wise, if the max amount of, say, fringe benefit, indirect cost reimbursement is requested and received from the Health Bureau for all of their grants as a whole, there's actually a surplus of $329,000 for that. Now, what happens, though, is, especially for fringe benefit, that's going to entail them being at full operation staff-wise according to what they've budgeted in their grant, which there are some positions that we haven't necessarily have a singular person covering the responsibilities that they have included in their grant, and or we have turnover or whatever it might be, that we don't always get to use all of the funds in that budget specifically for the salaries and then for fringe benefits. And eventually that's ends up being one of those requests to transfer from one bucket to the other that Sam has to put in so that they can use the funds. So ultimately, this is going to be a good example this year to see, and it's going to be easier to look at and see ultimately how much of those fringe benefit and indirect costs that are associated with the Bureau are actually going to be reimbursed to us. So what you see here is if fully budgeted, if we get to expend all of it, everything is covered. So we're going to work on making sure that essentially every time we do get fringe benefit and indirect costs reimbursement, we're going to chip away, we're going to add it into this bucket to make sure that we're covering the cost the best we can. And that'll give us be even more prepared for next year in terms of if there's any adjustment we need to make in order to make sure that we are essentially using little to no funds from the general fund to make the Health Bureau run.
That was a lot, right? Can you repeat that last sentence?
The important part is, at the moment, there are zero funds from taxpayer money that is being budgeted for the operations of the Health Bureau.
So I asked her to repeat that. Yes. I asked her to repeat that because I want to add some history in there briefly. And that is about 14 years ago, we were facing a real tough budget time, and some folks wanted us to cut the Bureau of Health because a Bureau of Health is not required under the third-class city code. It's not legally necessary for us to perform these tasks of assisting our friends, families, neighbors. But at that time, I think the calculation was around 11 or 12% or something. We were able to show, I specifically, it was the beginning of my involvement in New York City politics, really. I was able to show the council members and others that, look, this Bureau of Health is giving us a dollar's worth of service for 12 cents, or let's say it this way, $1 million worth of service for $120,000, and that really showed the value. But what Kim and Sam and Monica working on this budget, what they have shown us is that likely even back then, it was more of an accounting thing than it was that the city taxpayers were really investing even that much money, because so much, virtually all of the Bureau of Health, virtually all, 98, 90, again, we have to wait to the end of the year to figure out, to make sure that a few dollars or $10,000 or $20,000 or something might not end up coming out of the general fund. But what is the entire budget for the Bureau of Health this year? What is it?
Hang on one second.
I know it's not on here.
It is
4.3 million.
4.3 million.
Not even, it's even more than that.
No, it's $9.7 million worth of expenses.
$9.7 million worth of services coming in through the York City Bureau of Health, helping, and I have no questions about your budget. It's extremely complicated, and it's amazing. I have no questions on that, but I do want to give you the opportunity to say in your own words some of the things that you do for the community. But I will tell you that we are the envy of most communities. I, as a mayor who has the Bureau of Health that got us through COVID and was used as an example by Johns Hopkins of what you do during a pandemic, of how you really organize. That this Bureau of Health is the envy of my peers across the Commonwealth, and helping young moms that otherwise might not be getting those early maternal checkups, those pregnancy checkups, working to protect our kids from lead. They just do amazing work. I cannot say enough. And you've heard about me fiscally. I'm a little conservative, so. To hear this new news that virtually all of this work, $10 million worth of work essentially, is being done without having to come out of our pockets here in the city, directly out of our taxes. It's just, I'm overwhelmed, and I just want to thank you, and please bring my thanks back to all the staff. I'm thankful for all the staff throughout the city, but I'm a little overwhelmed right now with what Kim and Sam have taught me today, that now essentially all of that amazing work is not coming out of our general fund at all. So again, thank you. But please, I have no questions. Does anybody else have any questions?
I just want to add that ultimately what you're going to see in their budget is that there's a deficit of $755,000. That is because they do have one grant that was awarded this year where, unlike the others that are reimbursable, it was a lump sum that was given to us and we recorded in '23, which means Next year, they're working off of fund balance. So you're not going to see the revenue associated with it like you do for everything else. But trust me, it's all there. It's all covered. That one, they even made us put it in a separate bank account. We've got to count for interest and use it. So yeah, we have it all. It's all covered.
Okay. Would you like to share anything, take a few minutes to share anything about the department, about the Bureau?
Well, thank you. It's been a long time coming, and appreciate all the work that everyone's been doing to bring us to this point today. And I am, between me and the door and people getting home, I'm not going to stand up here and shout out about all the wonderful things that our staff does, but they do work a lot of hours. And when you were talking about body armor, yes, our staff is in people's homes too, and they face the same things as all the other employees of the city. So I would not be here today if it weren't for the amazing work of the staff. They are the ones that do all the work. And kudos to Sam for all of her hard work on this budget, because really she's the one that has made this work. So I just shout out to all the staff. Really, they're the ones that deserve the credit. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the budget team? No? Any questions from city council? Public?
I do have a question. Does this budget allow for walk-ins, or is it still going to be appointment only for the Health Bureau?
I believe it's always walk-ins, right? The Bureau, yes, the clinic at 435 West Philadelphia Street.
Walk-ins, I'm not sure where that came from, but we do have we schedule immunizations. We do have a walk-in STD screening clinic. But we do, at some point in time, especially for immunizations, if we will accommodate walk-ins as we can. So we do have a full schedule for screenings. And when people come in, if we can accommodate them, we do accommodate them. But there are times when we can't, and we will make sure that they get scheduled. Does that answer your question?
Going to the future?
Oh, well, no, right now we do. So if people come in and they need a service that we provide, we do everything that we can at that moment to provide that service. However, we aren't always able to accommodate a walk-in. There are things involved, specifically with immunizations. We always do a record reconciliation. So we don't want to give anybody a vaccine that they don't need or that they've already had. So sometimes what happens is they don't have all their information with them, or we will contact other agencies or organizations or healthcare providers to get those records. So sometimes it's not so simple of, hey, I need this service. We value being able to provide on-the-spot service, but we also don't want to provide something that isn't the appropriate service to someone. So sometimes it's us saying, let me check into that for you, and we will get back to you, or we'll schedule right now a couple days out, and if we find out that you don't need that service, then we'll get back to you as well. Our maternal child health program is a referral-based program. We have had people walk in. We've had women walk in who've delivered the next day, so that we accommodate as we are able to and as the need of that individual is.
All right. No other questions? We'll get into, last but not least, housing, which very similar to health, but a little bit different, is that we haven't had concerns with housing in terms of all of they have less personnel, unfortunately, but all of the costs associated with their personnel, they can budget within the grants that they receive from Community Block and Home to cover that whole expense. So that hasn't been one that we've had a similar issue with Health Bureau. They also have a lot less different grants to deal with, but they have been one that forever, forever, we can claim are fully funded. So there is no general fund expenses coming out of the housing budget. So again, you start looking through that, there's lots of different cost centers and different programs. They're more dealing with getting the money out to the organizations within the community that they determine that the money could go to, and it's more about the administration of doing that, not necessarily the people who are actually performing the programs in place. But anything else from Nona or housing, or any questions the mayor has?
Well, certainly, if you'd like to talk about any of the good things that are coming out of the home and CDBG work, I just have two things I wanted to bring up, particularly to council members, as you review our request for funding of the blighted properties. That our funding, if I'm not mistaken, has gone down this year. So some cuts had to be made from the CDBG allocations. And what I'm seeing here on page one, oh, so these do have the page number, page 113. So do you have the same page numbers?
Yep.
Page 113?
Yep.
Page 113, you will see the 20521 CDBG property management. This is the RDA taking care of the properties that are either in the hands of generally in the hands of the RDA. 200 vacant lot. I know you're working to get those numbers down, Blanda, but we're talking about mowing and shoveling and picking up trash and any kind of maintenance that needs to occur on these lots. You're also talking about a handful of structures that the RDA does control, that they are trying to reduce the deterioration of those buildings, hopefully maintaining them such that somebody can purchase them and renovate them instead of knocking them down. Every time we knock a building down in the city of York, we lose tax revenue. So while it's nice to think of getting rid of ugly buildings, you also got to realize that gets rid of income, which means everybody else essentially would have to pay a bigger share of the pie. And eventually, again, 15 years, 20 years from now, it'll start impacting us again. So what you see on page 113, 20521 is a huge reduction, 90% reduction in the ability of property management of those projects. 20521 CDBG-property management.
And the one thing to keep in mind is that the way that their funds work is that they're given an allocation for a year. And we budget that year's worth of allocation separate until it's exhausted. So you'll see that you'll have the same category of expense and a cost center that says the same thing, but the cost center number, the last two digits, represent the year of the award. So you will see the ones that are lower number, 20 and 21. You'll see a reduction from what was budgeted last year because they actually spent it.
Oh, so okay, so I'm reading this incorrectly. This is the rollover from 21. Okay, so where are we with 24? Where am I finding 24? Okay,
Well,
so is that page 116? Okay, page 116. Page 116. So I'm looking at that's the subrecipient contracts. Where am I finding 2024 RDA blight reduction?
You're not.
Why is that? Because there's enough.
Come on down.
Are you saying there's enough in the existing funds? Exactly. Now, we had a plan from RDA that said that it would take at least $2.5 million to really deal with the blight just to get started on the blight of the city of York. So how are you telling me they have enough money?
From our perspective, in community development block grant funding, they have enough 2023 money, and they don't need 2024.
Is that acquisition money also?
I don't have that plan in front of me. I think it's acquisition and yeah.
Typically, Bland and Ace, because of the rollover money from year after year, we've been doing a really good job spending it down, but there's still a lot of carryover from previous years that the authority can use that money for stabilization. There's money there for stabilization, which has gone up dramatically since we changed contractors for the lawn care, trash removal, those kinds of things. So it is a big expense. Sometimes.
It's getting done now, though, right?
What's that?
It's getting done now.
Done now?
It is
Done.
getting done.
It is getting done. Yes, it is getting done.
Down.
Previous contractor was cheaper. Just
Yes, the difference between $5 versus $25. But actually, I was on the committee that helped with the work plan for next year, and I couldn't there were so many others that need CDBG money. It wasn't justifiable to award 24 money to the authority when it still had 22 money rolling over.
But you're asking for 500, and that's a small number. You're actually asking for, you'd like $2.5 million.
Yeah,
But you're asking me and council to approve 550,000. So I'm not understanding, are you saying that it's okay to take the 500? I mean, it's almost like the same pots of money. The CDBG money goes in many cases to the same kind of folks we're considering for ARPA money. So why would you not take it from CDBG but then ask for it from ARPA?
Yeah, it's just there are different regulations. CDBG comes with many more strings attached for long term. It's always one drop ruins the whole bucket. So any penny of CDBG money has to be then forever has to be for low income uses.
Okay.
ARPA has a little bit more flexibility.
All right.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, council? So that's,
My understanding was that is to have that fund, so as we had the instance, when people have to be relocated and they don't have the money to do it, and then the joining property.
well, that's a tiny part of it.
A portion of it, correct, right. Which CDB couldn't do. For example, last year on 38 East South Street, yeah, that one, the RDA had funding that they could have used, but it wasn't an RDA-owned property, and it wasn't an RDA project. So the RDA's money couldn't be used for that kind of stuff. Right. And then the proposal that's in front of, right, exactly. Right, there's more flexibility, you're correct.
And I was going to say, it does look like that most of the money coming from community block, the majority of it goes to demolition and stabilization, and you have a flat $15,000 that you're getting each grant year just for acquisition, and that was the big focus on the ARPA fund money.
Correct. And in fact, a lot of that demolition money in this CDBG, Tammy and I will likely be adjusting to move it towards stabilization. Because there are a lot of there's lots of strings with CDBG demolition money. You have to run everything up through SPO for approval and historic ramifications of the demolition. And we've got a great partner now with the Land Bank Authority that's willing to fund demolition. Again, it's easier money.
Very good.
Very good. I have no further questions.
Budget team? No?
No.
Council members?
I do have a question. Page 117.
Can you come up to the microphone, please, so Byron can hear you? And say your name.
At Queen of Washington, page 117, if you look at 48217, is listed twice. Maybe I'm not reading it properly, I'm not
Are
understanding.
you talking about the Family Health Council?
I'm talking about the Home Buyer Assistance Program.
Okay, never mind. It's the year. You have to look at the
Okay.
last two digits of the cost center.
Okay, okay.
I did see an error when I was copying and pasting lines to do totals at 12 o'clock last night that I was copying from health. And so there's a bunch of lines that it says the total is for Family Health Council,
Okay.
family planning. That's not what
Okay.
it's supposed to be.
All right.
That's my error. I'll fix that.
Thank you.
For the home buyer assistance programs, is that enough resources to account for inflation and,
We're having those discussions with council right now.
and that would account for
So
giving someone more
I
money?
think we are in agreement that some amount of the ARPA funding should go to the Home Buyers Assistant Program. We just have to get to the point where we agree on how much.
And that would be for like the down payment and the closing?
Yeah,
Or would it just
it's
be
a,
for one or? It's all part of, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
so for instance, I'm open right now. Currently, it's a $5,000 portion. Prices have been going up. I'm not opposed to going to $10,000.
It's 10.
It went up to 10,000? When did that happen? Oh, okay, all right. Well, then we'll keep it at 10,000. So yeah, but we also have to watch out that we are in a market where York County or York City, I think it's York City or is it York County, that the York County Economic Alliance came out with a report, and I guess the national study shows that is it the city? That York City has has houses on the market the shortest time anywhere in the country. So, no, it's like a day and a half. It's like a day and a half. So that means the demand for housing is at 100% in the city of York. And if you understand a little bit about economics, if you're already at demand and you create more demand, the only thing that can happen is the prices go up. And so if we increase the prices by increasing the demand, the $10,000 that we invested disappeared because it didn't go to the home buyer because the price went up. It just went to the seller. And then you get no benefit out of it. So we have to be very careful about increasing demand at a time when we're at 100% demand. So that is the discussion that we're having right now. I am in favor, and it will come before council, it already came before their committee, of a very strong subsidy for new housing to come out. Because the only thing that brings down demand is higher supply. So we all agree that we need more housing. I don't think there's anybody, council, myself, nobody that disagrees that we need more housing. And we need more homeowners. But we just got to figure out how to get there without messing up with the system too much. So, any other questions? Any final statements from the budget team?
No.
Nope. Any final statements from council members? Any final statements from anyone here that wants to make a statement?
I just want to say thank you to our entire DECD team for the work that they've done. I want to thank you, Mayor, for your support, and council members as well. Got to give a shout out to the finance team because you guys did a remarkable job, so thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
For the budget team. Very good. Well, again, thank you, everyone, for participating, for all of your work, 365 days a year, but particularly for this very difficult task and overtime task of coming in late to the budget hearings. The budget will be presented to council at the second meeting in November, the second meeting this month, so this third Tuesday, essentially. And then it'll be up to council to either adopt it or work with it, whatever we need to do. And so keep an ear out for that announcement and watch the council meetings to stay tuned for council meetings if you're at the edge of your seat for what happens next with for what happens next with the budget. So thank you, everybody. At this time, 8:37, November 2nd, we will close this hearing. Thank you.